Welcome to today's weekly wind-up. My name is David Ridgway, and with me today are Liza Tweedie and Carl Yeates from the Barnsley and District Fibromyalgia Support Group. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Today's topics are fibromyalgia. This is a condition which leaves many housebound with a lack of understanding for the people who suffer it. And secondly, how dangerous are the cutbacks to agencies that deal with mental health? So, what is fibromyalgia? We asked the people of Huddersfield what they knew about it.
Don't know anything.
Nothing.
I've never heard of the condition.
I can't say I know anything about it, to be honest with you.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
I don't know anything.
I've got no idea what it is.
It's where everything aches without a cause. Like all your muscles and bones ache without cause.
The main symptoms of fibromyalgia, or fibro, is a widespread of chronic pain, extreme fatigue and disturbed sleep. There are many other symptoms. This illness leaves many housebound, jobless, and can lead to relationship breakups, anxiety, depression, and even suicide. Because so little is known of the illness, many suffer in silence for fear of being judged by friends and family. There can often be a lack of treatment and understanding from some medical professionals because the disorder has only recently become prominent. Less is known about the cause, although some research suggests that physical or mental trauma could be two of the triggers. The name fibromyalgia means pain in fibrous tissue, as this is where it mainly manifests. Back in 2009, Dr. Patrick Wood, a member of FibroAction's Professional Advisory Board in America, found strong links to abnormal dopamine levels that affect transmission of signals to and from the brain. According to the NHS Choices site, 1 in every 20 people suffer with fibro in some way. That is 5%. Even though the NHS knows this, treatment in this country is mostly inadequate. It is disturbing to report that the UK is way behind other countries that are researching to alleviate or even find a cure for fibro sufferers. In France and America, important work is progressing, but statistical information in the UK about how many suffer with fibro has never officially been collected. Despite this, it would appear that the numbers are so big that in 2014, a question by an MP about how many fibro sufferers were receiving benefits was deemed too expensive to collate. Lisa, can I come to you first, being the chairperson of your group? I hope you have found that preamble pretty accurate.
It is, Sim.
Good. Are there any specific points you'd like to add to that preamble?
Not really. You got it quite accurate.
Okay. So, 5% of people suffer with fibro. Can you tell exactly what is being done in this country and how does this country compare with others?
There's not much being done in this country. It's mostly charities. We've got Arthritis UK doing the research into the medical side of it, and universities that are doing it voluntary into the other sides.
So when you say the universities are doing this on a voluntary basis, who funds the voluntary work within the universities? Does that just come out of the university budget?
We've absolutely no idea who's funding these. It's
Okay.
mostly charity based.
Which universities are prominent?
There's one in Huddersfield. The group's just studied with Sheffield University on a new.
Is that Sheffield Hallam or Sheffield University?
It's Sheffield Hallam University.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is the government actually doing anything to promote this research?
We haven't found any proof of that as yet.
That sounds like a no. Well, let's be blunt. So Carl, let me come across to you. Can you describe how you felt when you first found out that you got fibro and what help was made available to you to cope with it? How did you feel?
I'd never heard of fibro before I actually went to doctors. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I must have gone 14, 15, 17 times. And it took a German doctor on locum to tell me that I got fibromyalgia. At the time, I didn't really think too much about it until I started researching more and finding out that it is more or less like a taboo kind of subject for most people. Nobody really talks about it.
Why?
I think it's the judgmental part that you get from it. People do judge you. If you can see that you're walking and you're moving, people think, well, there's nothing wrong with you, you're totally fine. And the fact that I've been through 17 appointments with doctors that did nothing, or very little, I felt kind of like estranged, I felt kind of like lonely, and not part of anything. You could go to arthritis, find out a lot of information, you can go to doctors and find out a lot about all sorts of things, but nothing much about fibromyalgia whatsoever. There were no leaflets, no information on the screen that comes in the doctors. There was absolutely nothing. It was a case of that we had to find, or I had to do, is troll the internet and look for what turned out to be small groups or small organisations that were trying to make a difference by telling people to come and see them, get support from them, and see if we can make a difference from that small nucleus into a bigger thing.
So the NHS, the Ministry of Health, the government, are glossing over it?
I'm not sure if they're glossing over it. I'm not sure if maybe they've got no funds to tackle something that's quite large. It seems to be that there seems to be two things with GPs in education.
But when you say the funds are not available because it's too large, that's the drift. Surely if they tackled it at this stage where people like yourself, people like both of you who suffer with this condition are able to continue to lead quote unquote normal lives and to put your bit into society, surely that is better for that to be done rather than just to become, my quote, a drain on the state.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that there's a lack of education and a lack of knowledge in general across the board. So nobody's really done any research into doing anything. And I do agree with you, if they solve the problem right at the very beginning, if making people be able to work with the illness and be more productive, then they would probably sell themselves quite a fortune. But we just don't know enough of the figures of how people are doing research and who is actually doing research to be able to give any definite kind of answers. We only know from ourselves, from different groups across the nation, the fibro support groups, and the main one, FMA UK. That's the only information that we have.
Presumably these support groups are growing?
Yes. I mean, the one that I'm with Liza, I mean, I think when I first joined it, it's mainly a Facebook support group, although we meet twice a month, once a week, isn't it? Yeah. Alternate weeks in a different place. I think it started off with double figures, but we now have 130 members.
Wow.
46.
46?
146.
146. Okay.
Well, there's a specific difference of opinion. So, Liza, how did you become aware that you had this condition?
I was actually having physio for hip problems
Right.
that I'd been treated with, and the pain in my back started. And the physio said that that's where the pain must have been in general from the beginning, but it just moved to my hip. So I got sent back to my GP.
Is there anything specifically wrong with your hip, or was it the hip was actually having what we generally call
rheumatology were looking at a hip bursitis, I think it's called, which is the bag of fluid between the muscle and the bone. They treated me for that. The pain did go away for a short while and then came back with a vengeance. And that's when it started going in my back. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So were you, well, it's a bit of a daft question this, I suppose, but were you aware of the condition, either of you, before you received the diagnosis?
No.
I'd heard about fibromyalgia because I've got a friend who had got it, but I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
So until I got diagnosed with it, which I wasn't given any information on it at the time, apart from the pain can be worse than osteoporosis.
Right.
So
What I find interesting is the fact that you can have medical professionals, GPs, rheumatology, give you a diagnosis, but the fact that you get help from non-professionals and your self-support groups I find that quite interesting. That is, how can they diagnose, but then it's left ourselves to try and...
Yeah, tell me, is there a difference in the GPs between older GPs and younger GPs, or those who became GPs a longer time ago than those who've become GPs more recently?
I found so.
Which way round?
I actually changed my doctor from an older GP because I got absolutely nothing. I was just given drugs after drugs after drugs.
Moving away slightly from the fibromyalgia specific, do you feel that that is an example of the necessity for GPs to be in continual training?
Yes, definitely.
Right, what do you feel needs to happen, Lisa, for people who suffer from fibromyalgia to improve their lives?
More information, better drugs, so we're not, as you call, doped up.
You're not going to get better drugs until there's more research.
Yeah.
So to get more research, there needs to be more funding from government.
Yeah.
How are you going to promote this idea in government? Have you started talking with civil servants?
That's our next plan within our group, is to talk to our local MP and get more awareness, because if we get out there more, then more awareness gets out there, then people might start taking note about fibromyalgia.
Okay. Carl, this is the moment where you can actually do your advert. Are there any local groups that people can get involved with?
There is in Huddersfield, yes. There's 3 of them. There's Huddersfield Fibro Support Group. There's contact there for 07766 218837. There's also Fibro Friends, which is a Kirklees community, and the number there is 0844 887 2593. And then if anybody wants extra information in general where all the support groups are, how to deal with benefits, how to deal with GPs, and then you can go on to fmauk.org where you can get information of absolutely everything that surrounds not just the illness but benefits and everything.
Brilliant. I'll have the 10 bob later on for that. Those telephone numbers, those names and those email addresses will be available on the Kirklees Local TV website. You can follow and get involved with this topic on Twitter using #Fibro. And now for some local news. In the Huddersfield Examiner, the 12th of May, carer Julie Roberts condemned the bedroom tax. Mrs. Roberts, who cares for her husband Stephen, ended up owing the council because of a loophole that had closed that she didn't know about. This loophole came to light when it emerged that people who had lived in the same house since the 1st of January 1996 and had received continuous housing benefit for the same period of time, these people should not have their payments cut. However, a later adjustment meant that the loophole would be closed and that the benefit level would be reduced. Her husband suffers from a neurological condition, which means that he shakes uncontrollably. Understandably, they sleep in separate rooms. Their home has been adapted at a cost of £15,000, presumably by the council or by Kirklees Local Neighbourhood Housing. So any subsequent move would cost the council thousands more to adapt their new home. Because they have 2 bedrooms, current legislation says that one immediately becomes considered for the so-called bedroom tax. Mrs. Roberts says that she wasn't told about the second cut in her benefit when the loophole was closed, and the first she knew about it was when the council started to chase her for the arrears of council tax, threatening her with eviction. The council told me, she said, that I didn't need to pay any more because of this loophole. But they didn't bother telling me that the loophole had been closed. How can I pay for something that I don't know about? A good question, Mrs. Roberts. And a council spokesman said, Mrs. Roberts was awarded additional benefit as a result of the government's legislation loophole. But she was also told at the same time that the government had changed the rules so her benefit would shortly revert back to its original level. I bring this story to you for 3 reasons. 1, it shows that the legislation has been enacted without due consideration for specific circumstances, and the government stands charged with acting without due care. 2, that the level of communication has been abysmal. Even if Mrs. Roberts was told that her benefits would be reduced, the council has a duty to have sent a written second and even a third letter to confirm that cut. 2 letters would have been a lot cheaper than subsequently chasing her for the arrears. And thirdly, on a wider basis, I have always believed that it is the responsibility of society to look after those who cannot look after themselves. No one likes benefit cheats, but we all bear the responsibility to do our best for others, and that includes both the government and the council. Liza and Carl, have you anything to add to that?
I think this whole thing with benefits, whether it be housing benefit or any kind of benefit, is the government doing a carpet bomb effect, and other people that are quite innocent are getting wrapped up in it, and possibly pushing through different policies and legislations a little bit too quickly. The staff to be able to train upon and get the right communications and letters and everything in place to be sent out when they should be.
I agree with Carl.
I used to agree with Nick. Well, that's it for this half. As always, we'd like to hear your views, and you can get your views to us via Facebook, Twitter at Weekly Windup, or info@kirkleeslocaltv.com. Thank you very much. Please come back after this short break when we will be looking at the cutbacks to mental health services.
However large or small your business, attracting new customers requires dedication and a lot of patience. Just like fishing, but you also need the right gear. Rods,
reels, lines, hooks, sinkers, lures, tackle box, tackle bag, net, bait, gas gloves, clothes, pocket knife, lunch.
Or you could simply advertise with KLTV. Online, grow your business and your clientele. KLTV, your vision made reality. Should have gone to KLTV.
Welcome back to this week's show. I have some more local news for you. Councillor Martin Bolt, one of my colleagues on the council, has questioned the council's decision to cut the budget to CCTV in Kirklees. The council, as part of the budget process, agreed to a significant reduction of CCTV and axed £246,000 from the budget for 2016. Kirklees has admitted that in the last 5 years, CCTV has been used in 21,437 incidents. And this has led to 4,315 arrests. It costs £300,000 a year, which covers for 11 staff and 150 cameras. Now, I'm not a mathematical genius, but it seems to me that the council is looking to run the CCTV for just a little over £50,000 in 2016, which seems to be a bit potty. Councillor Martin Bolt is unhappy about the cuts, saying, "This has come from a line in the budget, but I don't think the implications have been considered." Well, Martin, neither do I. Carl, a budget of £54,000 to run this important service, is that satisfactory?
No, straight away it's not. I mean, if you can look at the fact that it's gone from £246,000 is going to be axed, and you look at the fact that it's the amount of incidents that them cameras have caught, if you're knocking it down to 54,000, then how can you catch more?
Now,
on a strange note, I mean, you're going to have to tell me which road it is. There's a road on the way in.
I'm not telling you. That's private information.
Coming from Barnsley, come before, and the road is literally a camera, speed camera, must be every 100 metres the whole way down the road.
Is that the Wakefield Road?
I'm not sure which one it is. It's on the way into Huddersfield, coming from Barnsley. And I just, when we came down and we thought, we were talking earlier, you could lose your licence in one trip.
I bet you weren't speeding there, were you?
No.
No, well, there you are. See, so they work.
They could have had half of them, though.
Well, I know. I mean, I've been caught. on
that road?
No, on the Wakefield Road. But that was a long time ago when I was young and a bit hot-headed. Not anymore. So it's not satisfactory.
I mean, if you just look at the fact that they're chopping so much off, and the amount of things, incidents, and the rest that it's led to, maybe they're going to have to think a little bit more about where they place cameras. And try and cut it down. Well,
it's not just the speeding cameras, it's these big tall things in the centre of town, which can follow people around. I mean, I once saw a presentation of CCTV where we watched a shoplifter move around town for 20 minutes. Now, you could say, why are we watching them for 20 minutes when you already recognised him? And I could say it took 20 minutes for the police to actually arrive to nick him. And yes, that's all true. But there we are. Okay. The police station's in the middle of town as well. There we are. Question for you. If there were 413 arrests, it doesn't say how many of those were actually taken into court and how much was gained in fines.
That's true.
But let's just say that it came to a substantial slab of money, which I suspect it would with 413 arrests.
Then it'd be nice to put it back into CCTV.
Yeah, well, why can't the local courts, on behalf of the local council, retain a significant proportion of the money they raise in fines and put that back into running CCTV cameras? What do you think, Liza?
I think that would be a better idea, but not always happened that way.
No, they're not as logical as you and me. Do you think cutting the CCTV budget will lead Huddersfield into becoming a more lawless town?
I don't think so. I think really when there's, you say lawlessness is a small minority of people that if there's enough of these cameras to try and kind of put people off, that I don't think it's going to become lawless. I think it's a smaller number of people that actually cause any kind of problems, apart from maybe Friday and Saturday night drinkers.
Well, that's usually down on Cross Church Street. And on Cross Church Street, you get a lot of drinking from the student population. And the jury's out whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Actually, the jury's not really out because the students bring a vast amount of wealth into this town. And Huddersfield University is really going places.
And they're spending their loans properly then.
Absolutely. Well, isn't that what they're for? Okay, so also reported in the Examiner on the 19th of May was the tragic death of Adrian Smith. Adrian Smith was known locally as an eccentric and one of life's free thinkers. He was a retired road sweeper and he died after being attacked in Huddersfield town centre. And one hopes that that attack was seen on CCTV and that the perpetrator will be subsequently caught. So, this leads us into our second topic. How dangerous are the cutbacks to the NHS and the agencies that treat people with mental health? As of March this year, the government has cut the budget to mental health trusts by 8% or £600 million. At the same time, referrals to community health teams have increased by 20%. These teams help to avoid admittance to hospital, sometimes via A&E, and this in turn puts further strain on the A&E departments. Previous Care Minister, now out of government and indeed out of Parliament, he was a Lib Dem, said budgets were not the full picture, adding, mental health care is provided through a range of services, including the voluntary sector. He also said funding for mental health has increased since last year, but for too long mental health has lost out in local spending in many areas. He said that the payment system in the NHS tends to disadvantage mental health. You've had sort of issues paralleling this. Would you say that's correct?
I think from a service user in the past, I think it has. I think there is tendency to spend more on the physical side than what there is the mental side. But then if you're struggling to get to an outside agency or a charity because it can only go for a certain amount of time in the day and you've got emergency, you kind of feel silly going to A&E, but you know that that's the only way you're going to get some help is by waiting for 8 hours for a CPN to come and see you. And then maybe just send you home a couple of volumes or actually do something with you.
Interestingly enough, the president of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, Professor Sir Simon Wesley, said he was surprised that this picture wasn't even worse. Is that a fair comment?
As an ex-Samaritan, I am too.
Right.
So
He then went on to say, we're being asked to do more for less. We are campaigning and saying that people need to be more open about mental health problems and to come forward earlier. But when they do, we find ourselves with fewer resources to treat them and they are getting short-changed. Sir Simon welcomed the government's recent funding announcements but said messages from the top often fail to be passed down to the people actually making the decisions. And we talked in the first half about poor communication. Is that just an example of poor communication?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Lisa, do you feel the agencies and the people they help are getting shortchanged?
Yes. Too many charities are being used rather than the agencies that are there to help people.
In view of the fact that there is, we consistently get told, less and less money available, is it not right for the charities to be picking that up?
It
Is it not a necessity, really?
but the reason the charities are there is because there's not enough other funding available out there. So,
What impact are the cuts having on the services that are being delivered, Carl?
I think when I look at the whole, when you were reading all that, then I was looking at the whole picture of all of it, and it all surrounding money and cutbacks. So it's not just the increase in people with mental health problems. It seems to correlate with people losing jobs, losing their homes, and then you've got the charities that are losing their funding, and then they disappear. Puts more problems on the NHS, people waiting in A&E. I think the whole thing with cutbacks is having a knock-on effect all the way through across society as a whole.
Okay, and you're talking about knock-on effects. What knock-on effect is this having on the NHS and in particular A&E?
I think the fact that there's no charities around that are available, well, 24/7, you've got phone lines maybe with some items and such, but there's not enough charities that people can walk in and get a service that they need straight away there and then. If there were more people that dealt with mental health problems, but they could just walk in, see somebody within, even if it's just within 24 hours, that would make it a little bit easier. But when people get desperate, they go to A&E, they're taking them up more spaces. Of course, physical health problems, people with accidents and such have got to go in as well. So it's just clogging it up and making a backlog and making more waiting time for everybody and more pressure on the staff that have to deal with it. A lot of staff might not be able to deal with mental health problems neither.
Quite so, and that could very well come back to a question of training.
I think,
and that comes down to a question of finance.
Or more CPNs.
Well, quite so. I was actually going to make the comment that I'm actually a big fan of A&E, because the last time I attended A&E, I'd had my finger bitten off by a dog. And A&E were absolutely splendid. They looked after me so well. I'll never forget the lady in reception leaning out of the window and shouting to everybody else who was sitting there in the waiting room, "You'll all have to wait, this guy's really an emergency," and sent me down immediately for X-ray. And I felt so proud. More local news. Also in the Examiner is Reach for the Stars dancer and musician Jen Blackwell, and she hasn't let her disability get in her way. This was reported in the Examiner on the 16th of May 2015. Jen started her dance company Dance Syndrome in 2010 with the help of her parents, managing director Dawn Vickers and dance graduate Sophie Tickle. This has been Jen's dream since she was 19. Their mission is to help disabled and non-disabled people realising their own dancing ambitions. Now Jen, who has been Vice Chair of Xylophone Orchestra Xylosound in Slathwaite, or locally known as Slowit, for the last 8 years. And she is one of the main dance leaders and helps around 50 people develop their own dance skills every week in Manchester, Preston, Chorley and Wigan. The determination of both Jen and her parents, Sue and Malcolm, who live in Denby Dale, have shown that it is possible for everyone to excel regardless of disability. Lisa, is that a good story?
Very good story, yeah.
Excellent.
I think it shows real grit, that someone's fighting back and showing that it breaks out of the norms of magazines and what they show, I think.
As indeed, Carl, are so you and your partner Lisa. And I think it does you great credit. And I don't say that in a patronising way, because I really enjoyed working with you on this show. And thank you so much to you both for coming in. Everyone here at the Weekly Wind-Up wishes the best of luck to you, Jen. I hope you will come in and tell us more about Dance Syndrome in the near future. And of course, as always, we'd like to hear your views via Facebook, Twitter at Weekly Wind-Up, or by email at info@kirkleeslocaltv.com. Thank you, Lisa and Carl, for coming in today.
Thank you.
My name is David Ridgway. Thanks for watching. See you next week.